Boom, we are back. This is the world's most bullish podcast brought to you, as always, by the usual guests, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show is no show. No show, nowhere to be seen. This is that podcast, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit. What's going on, guys?
Man, planting some veg, building chicken coops. Not that Bitcoin related, but it's.
We're just talking about the Woman of the Year.
And that. We're going to go straight down.
Yeah, won't get ourselves banned that early, but yeah, interesting stuff. Talking about veg, talking about the Woman of the Year.
Yeah, we could get a YouTube strike for talking about that, but instead we'll just shout out to our sponsor. No sponsor, because we are unsponsorable.
Well, don't we have Bitcoin Lessons as a sponsor?
Yeah, unpaid, but it's more of like a friend of the show.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to associate with us.
Yeah,
I know, because I like the fact that, I like to never look line of no sponsor. So it muddies the water if we go, oh no, we do have one. It's like, okay, we'll just say it's a friend of the show. But no sponsor, we're unsponsorable.
We'll take a few minutes now to listen to our sponsor. Just silence. Just hear the whirring of a Bitcoin miner in the background. Yeah. That's our sponsor.
Or just some woke idiot weeing on the floor. Beautiful sound.
Yeah.
Get triggered. Yeah. It's weird you bring up Bitcoin miners though. It's the first story of the week.
Well, it was part of my thinking as well, in terms of a nice transition. Hey, we're naturals at this, right?
I forget how pro you are sometimes. You're just too much. Yeah, you're too pro.
In preparation for our first story today, and I'm really excited at this, and I'm glad to get into this as the first story because it's a potential new market and a new subsector that will open up lots for, the classic normies amongst us. And it can be sold in a different way, which is a Bitcoin miner that blends into your home, because it's a miner that not only mines Bitcoin, but acts as an air purifier and also as a heater as well. And I thought, there's times in this office get a little bit chilly. Maybe I don't want to put the central heating on. Maybe there's, at least 7 to 8 months of the year when, living in England, we need heating on. But this would be perfect. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, because I work at home majority of the time now. I have a heater in my office, so completely out of shot over there, because I don't want to turn on the heating for the whole of the house when I sit in one room of the house each day. So I bought a heater to plug in. So I turn that on for a few hours to warm up the room, otherwise it gets freezing. So when it was cold in December, January, I was cracking that on rather than turning off the heating all day until the evening or the morning when the kids were home. But it definitely gives you an option, but it's just, I feel like a little bit incapable of understanding how good a heater it is. It'd be great for me. I think the proof's going to be when people start using it and test it out. How big a space can this heat? How much extra cost does this give over a standard heater? Like I've got an electric. It
says 40 square feet in the when I looked on the website, and so this was my thinking. We get the triple package. So the minis come in a 3. There's 3 of us on this pod. Why don't we go split it 3 ways? and then and get one each, and then we report back to the people.
Oh yeah, the mini's the case. And
Yeah,
so for anyone listening there, it's called Heatbit, heatbit.com. The product looks great.
it
Yeah,
does.
these
It
minis.
does.
The minis aren't out yet, from what I understand. So I think you can pre-order them, but I don't.
Yeah, everything's ready for pre-order. Q4, so I'm thinking October, November, December of this year.
Yeah, and I think it says for 1 bedroom, you potentially need 2 of the minis. But then they do have a larger one. But the thing always with Bitcoin miners, right? So Bitcoin miners, you could always just buy a miner. But number one, it's way more expensive. So their price point is insanely cheap. So for the mini, they are saying it's $249, which is insanely cheap because a good heater and air purifier will cost about that. So you're almost
Correct.
getting the Bitcoin mining for free. Like I've got God, Bob, one of my stupid probably purchases was the Dyson heater. I think that was like $500, and that's just a heater and a cooler. Doesn't do air purification, and definitely fucking doesn't mine Bitcoin. They do have a larger one that comes in at 1,200. But the number one thing always was, yeah, you could buy a Bitcoin miner, but it would cost thousands, right? So thousands of dollars for the miner. It gives out loads of heat, and people have been using them as heaters forever. But it's the noise. The noise is so fucking loud that you can't have this in your front room. You definitely can't have it in your bedroom and sleep. Yeah, this is something you put in your garage, outside in a barn or a garage, like somewhere with power. It needs to be contained away. But according to their stats on here, which obviously all needs to be verified, they reckon it's less than 40 decibels. And I was just Googling that because I didn't check it out before. But 140 decibels is fireworks or gunshots. So very loud. So you don't want that. But 40 decibels, that's classed as soft. And that is a quiet library or a whisper. So if they've managed to get a Bitcoin miner and a heater, because even my heater is quite noisy. I have to turn up my TV a couple of notches if I put my heater on. So I would class that as, according to this, it's moderate, which is dishwashers, and moderate rainfall is 50 to 60 decibels is that. I would actually say that my existing heater now is that, because it's just a kind of quite a whir, especially if it's on high and you have to crank the TV up a little bit louder to hear it clearly. If this is like quieter than that and it's also mining Bitcoin, I don't even know how they've done this. It almost sounds too good to be true, because it was always the noise. Noise was always the problem.
Yeah.
And if they fix that, because obviously there's a huge amount of the cooling. It's mainly the fans that need to cool the device down to stop them overheating and breaking. So I don't know how they fix that problem. I don't know how they've made silent fans, but they appear to have. Obviously, it's not out yet.
It's not out yet. So
I don't know if their figures add up either.
What do you mean?
So
on the money,
the price which it appears with is 249, but when you look into it, it's actually shared ownership.
Is it?
So yeah. Whereas if you want to buy the full thing, you click on your order now, and it goes through to 499. So it's actually 499 for the mini instead. And then when you look into, well, how much is it going to cost me, and it's claiming X, it looks like the mini has a lifetime expectation of 5 years, which, let's be honest, is probably shorter. And then it also has, and it's saying you'll get a return of something like $130 per year. But it's on 24 hours a day. I don't have my heater on 24 hours a day. So,
yeah, I think, and obviously the earnings are going to be very dependent on the price of Bitcoin. But yeah, that's interesting actually. Yeah, so that 249, you give 50% of your Bitcoin back to Heatbit. But
in a way, that's showing you their confidence in the solution as well.
Yeah. Because if it didn't mine that much Bitcoin, then why are they giving it for half price? Yeah, because you can pay double the price and then you get all the rewards. And it's also like pushing that on you, isn't it? Like, how much do you really believe in Bitcoin? Are you willing to pay 200? Because according to them, yeah, even at the lower amount for 6 months of your heater being on, you should make, was it like $200 a year?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I didn't think like the miners that are this kind of small could really make much money, but maybe they are. They must be tapping all this into a pool, and even though you've got a tiny amount of hash rate, that yeah, you're earning a little bit of money. And I do love their website. They really do like give you everything, don't they? That's a little bit dirty where they're advertising at one price. You click buy and you realize,
Yeah, yeah, I know.
isn't the thing. But yeah, it says over 6. If you had it on for 6 months, how many months per year do you run your heat? Yeah, it doesn't. Did it say somewhere that it assumes that if you have it on for 6 months, it's on 100% of the time?
Yeah. So you look, it says usage at least 300 watts, 25% of power, 24 hours a day.
Oh yeah, that's a bit silly then. So you'd have to knock
Yes.
it down to at least even 3 months is too low, isn't it, or too high? Because
But you put
I'd
this
have it on for 3 months, but for I don't know, 5 hours a day during that 3 months, that's still
Mm.
it's like less than a month I'd have it on for really full time.
yeah. So you think your expectations are, but you have your heater on 100% of power for like a few hours each day, but the rest of the time it's still going to be on at 25%, even at the height of summer, to get those return figures. So the fact is, well, it's probably not as good a deal, but it'd be interesting for someone to own this and actually do the analysis on how much power, how much this has taken, and what's the kind of returns on it.
Because the thing is,
It
what you
is,
could do is obviously you don't need to use it just as a heater, do you? You could, I'm assuming you could switch this thing on and just, I don't want the air purification, I don't want the heating, I just want the Bitcoin mining.
Yeah,
So then you could have it on the whole year, right? You could have it on 24/7 for 12 months.
yeah,
yeah,
that's the 25% of power. But I think, someone would really have to own this, put it into a pool and work out how much electricity is it using over a year and actually do that full analysis to look at the returns. Because
Yeah.
it does look on the surface like a really good idea. But I think there's a couple of things which we started picking up there where you're kind of going, is it? Has it got enough power? Is it going to actually succeed?
Yeah. I'd imagine the amount of energy it costs to power it is less than the Bitcoin it's mining. So you'd need it to use it for. It'd be great though, because if you only use something like this as a heater, and even if it did only earn you £30 a year, but the time you had it on cost the same as switching on your heater anyway. So
Yeah,
instead,
if it
so
was the
you're going to
same,
use that energy anyway, say, and then but you make 30 quid in Bitcoin, and this could well be. I need to check it out, but is it KYC free Bitcoin that adds value to that Bitcoin?
mm.
It's outside of the system. Can I just get it sent to a wallet that isn't identifiable to me
See,
on
this
this
is where I
device?
think when you're looking at the app that it comes with, and then you can see the energy that it produces, and obviously then you can understand how much Bitcoin that you've potentially mined, how you then claim that Bitcoin back from the energy that has been mined. That part would also be interesting. But for me, I'm really interested in the whole new use cases. When
oh yeah,
Satoshi created Bitcoin, he never ever, I'm sure, imagined it was then going to be a heater and an air purifier.
Yeah.
just wait till they're bringing out Bitcoin miner vibrators.
Oh man. What's the thing? Like literally, it was years ago. We had phones that could mine Bitcoin, but that never made sense. So they didn't take
No,
off. But this makes sense, right? So just getting Bitcoin miners into day-to-day products makes perfect sense.
exactly. Into day-to-day products, then making sure that people are using the energy all the time. You're also buying the actual product, so they're making a profit initially from that, and then it just becomes part of everybody's everyday life.
Yeah, we looked at one a while back, which was a node as part of a router, wasn't it?
Yeah,
And you kind of think if you move towards a Bitcoin standard, so using El Salvador as an example, then it's putting things into every day. So you get heaters, you have a router, they've all got a node, they've all got a miner in it, and therefore the network is secure. So once you've gone past the point of mining new Bitcoin and you're just claiming the fees on the transactions, these are the kind of like innovations which need to be there in order to make sure the network's secure, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they're just in place. You know, everyone, oh, I want a new router from Virgin. Virgin send me a router, and by standard, it's got a lightning node in it or a node. That's the kind of stuff which you want to see, because that's how Bitcoin becomes every day. And I think you brought it back quite nicely there, because I've got some doubts about this, but this is one of the first steps in normalizing having a node or having a Bitcoin miner in your everyday household items, like in your fridge.
In your fridge, yeah, absolutely. But I also think as well, it's how companies make that transition and that jump, because they could be giving you a fridge for free, let's say, but the fridge for free means that you're then sharing the rewards of the Bitcoin mining. So there will be some people who are like, yeah, you know, this is the new buy now, pay later.
Yeah. God, that's a genius idea.
You know, if you put it into everyday products and you don't need to wait, here you go, have it.
That is literally genius. So never look. That literally is a business model that I'm not sure anyone's ever thought of before. Which is literally give these things away for free, but it's mining Bitcoin, sending it to us. Yeah. And that's our discretion. Like, so over the years, we're going to make thousands of this for a £200 device, whatever it is. But if you've
got to have it turned on 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, to a certain degree, you just be like, if the product works, they're going to use it.
Yeah.
So just go free heater, free fridge. Well, the fridge is a great one, because fridges are on 24/7 all the time. The heaters would be a bit more of a gamble, because no matter what you tell people, you're like, yeah, you gotta have them for 24 hours. It's like, fuck you, switching off, you know. But even then you just go, fuck it. Like, it cost us 50 quid to make. We're gonna sell it for 250. Instead of saying it for 250, give it away. We take a £50 hit, and we'll make our money back within a year, even if they only have it on a little bit. And it's a free heater. Why wouldn't they not use it?
Well, you just have a clause in the contract. You get it for free. If you have it turned off, then there's a sliding scale of how much you've got to pay.
Well, you do the revenue share as well, you know, where ultimately
for 50%.
the business, or 80-20, because at least it keeps skin in the game for the customer. But really the house always wins, and they're getting 80% back. But the business will want to obviously make sure that the customer's using it, and the customer's incentivized to keep it on.
I think it's just, it's whether these things are powerful enough. But I think, Bitcoinization many years in the future, I think these are exactly what should happen, or hopefully will happen. Things like a dynamo in a car or something like that, in order to buy a power Bitcoin miner or something like that. So it's waste energy, more efficient technology than we got right now.
You got to think of things that make you have to use energy. So it could be the circuit board in your house. So every time you're turning on the light, you're putting the kettle on or something like that. So maybe it goes beyond individual products, and you think bigger. And so the customer doesn't even have to think about it. So when they are, again, in the house, turning on a switch,
using
it's
their
just
vibrator,
going straight back to the grid. And you're mining.
Yeah. It's going to be nuts, isn't it? Just about every company ever is going to be just trying to harvest any little bit of excess energy.
Yeah.
Mining a little bit of Bitcoin with it, because that is just, it's always going to be the way, isn't it? It's just the incentives, and why wouldn't you? If something is churning out and using a certain amount of energy to do a thing, why wouldn't you just go, well, we could also run this chip here that mines Bitcoin and makes couple of $100 a year. Why not?
So it's not going to be as intensive as a Bitcoin miner, but if you have like 100 of these within your own household and it's in a big pool with all these people across the UK or the world, it's still, it's like the flood
It's
of
like
power.
little opportunities for lottery, isn't it? For free.
But
You know.
if you go in a pool, you're guaranteed a share.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, number one thing we haven't factored in here is the price appreciation. We're working it out at the moment at today's price.
Or if you want cash or if you want fiat as well.
Yeah.
And
Making
touching
$100,
on
it's going to be, if you just 10x it. So suddenly,
Yeah.
instead of making $100 a year, you're making $1,000 a year, and the product cost you what is it, 500? So you go, well, straight away I've doubled my money on the product. That's the thing. Like miners typically take 1 to 2 years to pay off, and this is going to pay off in 6 months, and that's using the product for the lowest amount they had on the website for 3 months a year. You go, okay, this is. It becomes a no-brainer, isn't it? It's like if you're in the market for a heater, why wouldn't you buy this one now if you're a Bitcoiner?
Yeah. So I think this, hopefully we saw more innovation in this. So actually being a lot better than I thought after having a chat about it. It's brought in a lot more possibilities. I think that and the root are really exciting innovations in the world of Bitcoin.
I like the fact it looks good as well. It looks like a proper.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like a Sonos kind of thing, doesn't it? Mixture between a Sonos and a Dyson.
Yeah.
So often, like us Bitcoiners, we go a little bit too hardcore, a little bit techie, and go look at functioning is great, and you go, yeah, but if you want it in my front room, the missus has to like it. The mum and dad and the uncle and aunties are all going to see it. They're going to comment. Does it fit the color scheme and all that kind of bollocks? And you're like, well, now with this little thing sat in the corner, I think no one even barely comments on it. They're like, oh, nice little heater. And what? No one's like, what's that thing doing here? A random fucking honey badger or big Bitcoin bee sat there. Like, you don't want it to attract loads of attention, do you? You want it just to look nice and sleek, professional, sits in the corner. Anyone asks, you're like, oh, it's just a heater. Or anything.
Yeah.
It also mine's Bitcoin, but don't worry, I'm not gonna fucking start trying to orange pill you now. It's good to see some really well-designed Bitcoin products coming out. We've had a few of them the last couple of
We definitely need to continue keeping our eye out on them as well because the aesthetics of the products are getting better and better, and of course the use case for the products as well. Fantastic. And for me, I just see it's a whole new market of consumerism, but aligned with Bitcoin, because these are Bitcoin only products.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's nice to not see that, oh, I can fucking mine some shit coins as well if you just click this button.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about the bear markets. It always is. Because if we're in a bull market right now, for them to sell a load of these, if they just put the latest shitcoin on there, they probably sell another 10,000 of them. Because we're in a bear market, everyone knows any fucking coin of value is Bitcoin. So there's no being Bitcoin only is profitable at the moment. It's by putting shitcoins on this, you turn off the Bitcoiners and you get no sales. Whereas when you're in a bear market, all the shitcoiners are gone. All the NFT morons are gone. It's only Bitcoiners left. So Bitcoin only products should do well.
But we are getting the what's it called, the ordinals now, which is basically shitcoining on Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, there's some. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, it fucking disgusts me.
Also, maybe in this bear market as well, it's like when you're hard up and you've got to make ends meet, you then think more creatively as well. So perhaps this crypto winter and the duration of the crypto winter has made people come up with these more innovative ideas, because on the website it says it's been in design for the last 2 years, or and the concept's finally been brought about. When there's so much free money and Bitcoin skyrocketing, you don't then have to think and sit down and kind of create anything. You're just like, oh well, my only hard choice is what color do I get the Lambo in?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
they do say that you can only build during a bear market because you're not really watching the price. You're not seeing
No.
your net wealth double every like week. And it's like I said, it's very distracting during a bull market because you just
bull markets are spent to make memes and cool little videos.
yeah.
And dunk on those that said it would never work.
Yeah.
I just can't wait for the next bull market.
It's fun, but like you can't concentrate on anything. You can't build anything.
No.
Like, I built Bitcoin lessons in the bear market.
Yeah.
And during the bull, it's too fucking distracting. It's too
Yeah.
much fun. You wake up each day and you're like, holy shit, another
This is, I
20%.
guess, as we've seen in the fiat land as well, why and how mistakes are made because people just get a bit too giddy and too drunk on the euphoria of everything's rosy.
I suppose it's not just that; it's laziness.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
Complacency.
yeah.
That's why we always say the bear market's always super healthy. It cleanses out the non-believers, and even the believers, we have to hunker down. And
I can't wait. It'll be like my first. I suppose it'll be my third bull market when it comes to it, but really my first in a way.
Yeah,
It's more riding on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the colours are truly out now. So it'll be like, I fucking told you. I just can't wait for that. It'll be like, oh.
Yeah. The only issue is we tend to have like a 6-month bull market and then 3.5 years of bear market.
Yeah.
But those 6 months are fucking glorious.
But I think it's a good time to move on to our next story because whilst we've just been talking about mining, our friends the WEF may also be mining Bitcoin as well. So you've pulled out a really interesting story, Mr. Rawlin, with regards to the WEF mining their waste energy. And in the video...
Seems familiar.
Yeah. I picked out some choice keywords of what was said. And these choice keywords were mobile modular data centers. I think they were miners. and low-cost computing infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if you look at so it's a company, Crusoe Energy. So I looked at their website, and whilst the WEF did not say it, or the WEFy video did not say it on the crusoeenergy.com, they do say it. So they've got three use cases, and Bitcoin or cryptocurrency mining is one of them. So we talk about data storage, cryptocurrency, and something else.
Where's the site? On the WEF website?
No, on the Crusoe Energy. So this video is the WEF with Crusoe Energy. But Crusoe Energy have not said in this one that it's Bitcoin mining, but everyone who saw it was just like Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
It's literally what, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's literally where the waste energy use of flaring has come from is Bitcoin mining. And now the WEF are trying to adopt it.
Yeah. Well, and seemingly have, right? So that's hilarious. I think this is a fuck up, by the WEF. I think they've gone, look how green we are. Here we are. We've moved some data centers out to these, these energy plants where the spare oil is too far away from people. So the most efficient way to actually handle it is just to set fire to it, which obviously is such a waste of energy and is putting a load of pollution into the air. And they're going, oh, but look, instead of burning it off, we've rerouted it into these, what they call it, let's never look.
Modular and mobile data centers.
Yeah, mobile modular data centers or low-cost computing infrastructure.
That clearly is, Bitcoin mining. So I think they fucked up and gone, and they're actually advertising Bitcoin by accident.
Yeah, I think so.
It made me think about it in a couple of different ways. So you've got the Klaus, Are you mining Bitcoin? But then
Yeah.
there's you kind of go, unlikely. They'll just steal it off people. But then I kind of went,
They don't need to
this
use
is
waste energy. They could just use real energy.
but this is it with flaring, using flaring as an energy source. It's a Bitcoin success story. And what has everyone transitioned to? So they moved away from Bitcoin's going to boil the oceans to it's wasting energy, because we've moved from burning fossil fuels through to going to using renewables and wasted energy. So it's actually going, there's alternative energy usage for this. So I think we may be thinking this from the wrong angle, because what angle they're looking at is going, that energy should be used on something else, which is data storage, which is artificial learning, deep learning, kind of things like that. That's what I think the angle is going towards, as in you can use that for other things, for mobile data, for these mobile modular data centers.
Yeah.
You don't need to use it for Bitcoin. I think it's about wasted energy and to basically go shoo away Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, I was just looking on LinkedIn as we were speaking, and I was looking specifically for the CEO, Chase Lockmiller. Couldn't find anything about him, or he doesn't have a profile. But a guy called Thomas Butler, member of the board of directors of Numbers, he says that time and time again, Bitcoin has garnered criticism for using proof of work consensus mechanism. Contrary to the proof of stake concept, proof of work based protocols tend to consume more energy, and that the WEF's promo video shows Bitcoin mining but leaves out the B word. So I definitely think it is indeed.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think it's a fuck up. I think it's an energy
and
thing.
But you're
also,
right.
the business has raised money as well, because they've got a 1.75 billion valuation off the back of it, and they've also been given 350 million in a Series C round as well. So in a roundabout way, they've also been given $3.
This actually does expose the fact that it was a crypto mining firm they were talking about.
Yeah.
It wasn't a modular data center that was doing AI or data processing or any bollocks. It was a Bitcoin, or unfortunately crypto mining.
So basically, they've just been able to keep a straight face, leave out the B word, and take the money, but mock the WEF at the same time.
Yeah. So it's a bit of an own goal. Like if this was designed to build a foundation to go, look, waste energy can be designed to use to do lots of things, not just Bitcoin mining. But yeah, and they've done a video that happened to use the example of a Bitcoin miner using waste energy. It's like, well, that was a bit of an own goal. At least use one, because the problem is there is no incentive for people to move out like that type of processing all the way out to the middle of nowhere. There just isn't. There isn't. It doesn't make sense. You need loads of people. It's just you got to move a load of stuff. Like it's just not like, because the main cost of like processing a lot of that stuff isn't the energy. It's just the equipment and the people and whereas with Bitcoin, the main cost is energy. That's why it's worth uprooting millions and millions of dollars worth of infrastructure and moving it out into the middle of fucking nowhere through a huge cost. But you're saving so much money on energy where it goes from being your main cost to nearly a negligible cost. That is the incentive needed to move an operation out into the middle of nowhere. And I don't think it's there. Because the thing is, if it was there, they'd already be there. This waste energy wouldn't be waste energy. It would already be being used. Bitcoin miners are the ones moving out there going, hey guys, we'll take it. We'll buy it off there. We'll buy that shit off here. If big data processors wanted it, they'd already be out there using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what that's. I'm confused now. I went.
Yeah, I think we'll
flip-flopped.
see. I'm just not convinced the UEFA made a massive fuck up, but if they have, it's hilarious.
Well, according to that LinkedIn post that you found there, Senebala, that this video, which we'll link, I'm not going to put it in because this is too boring, but that link and that video shows waste methane being used to cover data centers, but that data center is a crypto mining firm.
Correct.
So I don't know what they're trying to prove there, other than Bitcoin mining is great for saving waste energy and saving the planet. Bitcoin's meant to be boiling the oceans, not using up waste energy.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be one of the biggest stories in the last week on Bitcoin Twitter. And it kind of pivots us on to the next one, which has been one of the biggest stories on Bitcoin Twitter over the last week, which is around what appears to be the next collapse of a nation state. So a big favorite of the pod, Argentina, has seen inflation hit 118%, but everything's fine because don't worry, the IMF will be here for around 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 40. You know, what's the bailout and what's the price? So I think this is just highlighting, but I know that people who are no coiners will say in response to this, well, it's Argentina.
It's a small country.
Yeah, it's only a small country, but when you look back at the history of Argentina, so we go back to when it had its roots, when it actually didn't have too much government influence. It had a good agriculture production, so it's similar to the UK from my understanding. So it outgrew Canada, Australian population, total income, GDP. And in 1913, Argentina was among the world's 10 wealthiest states per capita. But people say, oh, it's 100 years ago. But after then, that's when you start seeing the government intervention within Argentina. So it's for the past 100 years. I think that average inflation rate has been, is it between 50 and 100%? I can't remember which one it is. It's either 50 or 100.
It's 50, yeah.
Yeah, so literally they've been averaging hyperinflation every year for the last 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's 50% a month. Is when it's hyperinflation. But
I thought it's over a year when it went to hyperinflation.
I think it's a month. That's hyper. Because it doesn't really matter. It's because it's still because 50% a month basically makes the money unusable, right? And that's hyper.
But even 50% a year, it literally bankrupts all the citizens.
Well, does it? We're running it 20 to 25, 30 now. People just suck it up. It needs to, you can handle 50% for a couple of years, but then eventually it just gets out of control and ends up being 50% a month. Now, after 6 to 12 months of that, you're done.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Because hyperinflation literally means that it's out of control and the money's useless now.
But I thought the definition was something like 50% because it's unsustainable.
Yeah, so
it's worth having a look at the definition. So, looking back at the history of Argentina, they were 1913, they're fine. But what happened was a military junta took power from what appears to be a civilian constitutional government. So, they got laws in place to protect all their rights to stop government intervention. And that happened in 1930. But even up until 1962, because of all the good work and the infrastructure which was in place, their per capita GDP was higher than that of Austria, Italy, Japan, and even its former colonial master, Spain. So they were still in a good place. But after 62, that's when they really started to collapse. Oh, actually, here we go. So we're talking about the inflation rate. I actually got the figure. I've forgotten that. I'd made up my notes. The inflation rate in Argentina averaged 190.32% from 1944 to 2023. 190%.
Every year.
Your government wants you to prosper, and it had its highest all-time high in March of 1990 of 20,262.8%. So in
Wow.
1990, and then it had a record low in February 1954. But you have to watch out for deflation because that is the bad one. Inflation keeps you nice and warm inside.
It actually makes it weird that the fact that Argentina has 118% inflation, this is year on year, is even a story. It's almost, well, what's new?
I know. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, it's funny you say that as well, because I had done some research into this ahead of today's call and today's pod, and I was just like, once upon a time, Argentina was ranked as one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And let me just put this into perspective for everyone to kind of reel off where they were. So they were ranked in the top 10 wealthiest countries in the world by 1913. And the country was richer than France or Germany, almost twice as prosperous as Spain or Italy, and its per capita GDP was almost as high as that of Canada. Neighboring Brazil was 5 times behind Argentina, and Japan, at the time, one of the world leaders at the end of the 20th century, was almost 3 times behind where Argentina were. Now, some of the things that obviously changed all of this were World War I and World War II, and the fact that Argentina were a big exporter in agricultural goods, that when the world wars were happening, all of a sudden just stopped. And as you've gone on to say, they have gone on to then default on their debts to the IMF and others 9 times and twice in the last 2 decades as well.
But I think this is the point that they've only just been bailed out by the IMF last year. I think that this is why it's a big story. And part of that deal, they stopped the infrastructure being put in place for Bitcoin ETFs issued by the central banks in Argentina. So I think that is why it's such a big story, because I get Mr. Orlin's point. But yeah. And there are various things in here. So kind of going from Sir Neverlook, I looked into the currency. So what happened with the currency? So it's a peso to 1826. The peso fuerte and the peso moneda corriente both ran at the same time, 1881. The gold and silver pesos ran from 1881 to 1970. Really relevant because it's a gold standard. And they ran alongside that fiat. So they ran the peso moneda nacional from 1881 to 1970. But because they devalued it so much, they actually binned it in 1929, but not officially until 1970. And then they ran the peso ley 1970 to 1983. They collapsed that. They moved to the peso argentino 1983 to 1985, collapsed that. They moved to the Austral 1985 to 1991, collapsed that. And then it was a peso convertible 1992 onwards. And it started off 1-to-1 with the dollar. So here's a bit of a question. December 2003, if it was 1-to-1 in 1992, what was the value to the US dollar in December 2003?
1 to 10.
1 to almost 3 to 2.93. So that's after 11 years. May 2018, before this really kicked off, what was the value of the peso to the dollar?
God knows.
1 to almost 22, so 21.82. So you got to say within 11 years, America has got its inflation anyway, but Argentina was 3 times as high. After a total of 26 years, they were almost 22 times as high. And then the recent one, when I checked the other night, it was 1 to 220.21. So they're 220 times as high as the US over a total of 31 years.
Yeah.
And the US is out of control.
Yeah. It's bad because usually when you're bringing your pricing metric back to something, it's something that's solid, something that's staying consistent. But when the thing you're comparing it to is going up like a rocket train already, and that looks stable, and you look like you're the nutty one. But just to go back to what we said before, I've had a little quick Google. So hyperinflation, defined by Investopedia. So hyperinflation refers to rapid and unrestrained price increases in an economy, typically at rates exceeding 50% each month over time. Yeah. But the next bit is interesting, right? This is interesting. Investopedia say this. What causes this, right? Hyperinflation can occur in circumstances affecting the underlying production economy in conjunction with a central bank printing excessive money.
Interesting.
How dare you?
Interesting.
It's nice that even on Investopedia, which is obviously not a non-Bitcoin, normally a bit of a government-leaning kind of website, they admit what causes hyperinflation: money printing. You're not allowed to say that. It's wars and pandemics and healthcare and stuff. You just got to fix stuff, right? Like these things are macro, they're uncontrollable. And in reality, it's like
to go up every year by 2%. Does it? No, it needs to.
Deflation's unhealthy. What the hell do you think happened in 1954 in Argentina? It was a bad year, -7%.
Well, that's interesting as well. So again, ahead of today's pod, did a little bit of research in terms of what does the everyday person do in Argentina. So this is the depths of my mind, and someone's already made a video out there where they're interviewing everyday Argentinians and what they do. So they get paid in pesos, and immediately as they get paid in pesos, they convert it into US dollars because of the hyperinflation of pesos. They say what we try to get rid of it as soon as we get it, and we try to move to a more stable monetary system. And we've always been saying, the death of the dollar. Well, before the death of the dollar happens, the death of the pesos will happen. Yeah. This, of course, also, I think, ultimately brings us on to why we're covering this story, which is there is a life raft out there for these individuals, and if they can get on the life raft, they can hold on to their wealth and not see it evaporated away. And that life raft, of course, is Bitcoin. So if
you're sounding like a Nazi.
Oh, stop it. Ultimately they need Bitcoin. They don't need any other form of cryptocurrency. They need Bitcoin. And ultimately we are watching everything play out, what will happen in other countries across the globe, but in real time, and
even the UK,
in our lifetime, and in the UK. You're right.
It's going to happen. It's happened every single time.
Did you see at the bottom of the article, by the way, that it talked about the inflation of the UK?
Did I miss that bit? It was from a Sailor article.
Yes, I think so. It's off the back of the Sailor article, yeah.
UK inflation hits a new 40-year high of 10.1%.
Correct, and then after
that's a fake figure.
Yeah, 10%. Lol.
UK inflation anticipated to reach 18.6.
There you go. And if you think about that, that's showing that anticipated 18.6, but we know that those numbers just go astronomical, don't they? And it starts off at 2%, 10.1%, 18.6%, and before you know it, we are the new Argentina. But not just the UK.
Yeah. If that is actually true, the 18, it is spiraling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Imagine that in 3 years, we've gone from 2 to 10 to 18.
Correct.
So this is, I think what we commented, that we were hitting 10% inflation and we were still doing QE. And it's the same as the US. Like the US is protected because it's got the petrodollar. So there's always going to be a want for that. And it's managed to semi-protect itself for so long. But the UK follows it like it's a little dog. And it's just now we've copied it and it's going out of control. And this, how do you rein it in from 18.6? We were still QEing. It's like, oh, what's the cause to inflation? Print more.
Yeah. And of course, if the figure that they're sharing with us is 18.6 as the official figure, we know that that figure is a hell of a lot more, because now that they are kind of getting their heads around, oh yeah, it is double figures at 10%. Well, we've always been saying that it's been more than 10% and always in double figures before they've now come to the admission of double figures.
Yeah. Well, it's the wages which hide the inflation, because the wages don't keep up with the inflation of the goods. So whilst the wages don't rise, they're still a big proponent of what's going on. Whereas if you look at just goods, the goods are significantly higher. And also CPI, it's looking at things which are typically subsidized by the government. So like wheat being an example, they don't put in something which is, well, just pure cost, like gold, like a house, like energy, things which you actually need, because otherwise that would show the true figure. So, as we always say, double or triple. I'd love to see an actual proper inflation figure where they just went gas, electricity, internet, mortgage, average house cost, rentals, price of chicken. So you come up with a supermarket shop for a week, which includes loads of meat and whatever, and go, this is your inflation basket, and then measure it yearly. I'd love to see that, because that would probably show it to be ridiculous because energy is so high.
Yeah. Our next story just links perfectly into this all, because obviously we've got a few tweets around the same issue around this Argentina thing, but just we were discussing there how do you protect yourself from the peso in hyperinflating? Well, switch to the US dollar. Guess what? I was going to ask, like, what apps are they using to do the switch? Yeah, is it an independent one? Is it a government-run one? Is it some financial institution? And as always, of course, it is their banking apps, isn't it? They're using their banking apps, and banking apps are an extension of government. So this is where this next story kind of comes in, where, well, the Argentina central bank needs money. They're hyperinflating. Their money is losing value.
You're not going to suggest this. They've done that. They did a once-in-a-lifetime haircut a year ago. They wouldn't do that again.
They're not doing a haircut. They're just stealing it outright from the look. And then, obviously, I don't know if we ever verified the story or not, or whether how true it is, but according to this, they declared a bank holiday yesterday and kept the banks closed, so people couldn't go in and withdraw their money from their banks, because even the US dollars...
Wasn't that just a late celebration for winning the World Cup?
Well, it's funny you say this in terms of not verifying, and hopefully the listeners can tell I've been doing my homework this week, because Adam Bat in the Twitter feed said any other links in terms of this, and there was official links from, I guess it was Argentinian newspapers or digital Argentinian newspapers, which, thanks to Google Translate, states exactly that. So officially, yes, Monday and Tuesday of this week. So to all the listeners, we record on Tuesday. So today it has been a national holiday for the banks to be closed as well. So it has been verified.
Have you looked at the US dollar to peso convertible? So if you look at it and we actually get up a chart,
it's 500.
It's got this massive pause in the middle from when they've closed the banks. It's just a straight line.
Interesting.
Which fits in with this, because I was looking the other night and I just load up one of the FX companies. Oh, I just want the actual bloody chart and it's not showing it for some reason.
But as we saw, whilst you're doing that, as we saw with the recent bank collapses, we now live in a digital age where people don't need to queue up outside of the bank. So you could, you could set not even a reminder, you could set an action to essentially move it from one place to another. So the minute that the bank opens again, they're going to have all of these requests for the money to flee.
Yeah, but you talk about that they don't control the IT systems. They can just cancel all those.
Well, that's the thing. They've they didn't just close the bank, the branches. They suspended all operations for the weekend and for Monday. So
yeah, so if you look at it on, I don't know how this works exactly and what they did for the sorcery, but Friday at 10 o'clock, they shut down all the banking systems, and the Argentina peso to US dollar flatlined until Sunday at 5:30. It's literally like a flat line. Like currency never does that. You see all these little bits as all the trading's going on. But I've just dropped a link into the chat, and you look at a 5-day view, it's just, and then it happens again. There's more flat periods where they're obviously pissing around with something, but I don't really understand what on earth they've done. But when they open it back up again, it just skyrockets every time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we always say, like when you use the life raft analogy, unfortunately, these guys, they've jumped out of a sinking ship, which is literally underwater, which is the peso, and they've jumped into another ship, which is still sinking, but it's sinking slower, but it's controlled by the first ship, so their money is not safe. So it's got stolen. You've just jumped to another sinking ship. The life raft is Bitcoin, and literally not only the fact that it's scarce and it's decentralized, but it's just the fact that it's uncensored, the censorship resistance, which is the government can't fucking steal it.
Yeah.
When these governments fuck up, they will steal your money. It's the point that we've been batting home for the entire pod, which is you think that, oh, let's say you're a UK person. Oh, it's okay. I don't have very many pounds. I have stocks and shares. I have a pension. I have an ISA. I have some Vanguard investments. It's all the same fucking thing. Is it all in the KYC and AML account that is some financial institution? If the answer is yes, because it fucking has to be, then when it really starts to cause trouble, which is what's happened here in Argentina, the currency is getting out of control. What do? They get desperate and they start grabbing any money that they can grab, and this is what they're doing now. Their people don't have pesos, so they're grabbing their dollars instead. They'll grab their shares, they'll grab their pensions, they'll grab anything, and they'll plumb it all in, trying to save the peso. And at the end, they will fail, and it all gets reset and goes back to zero, and everyone loses everything.
I'll call it peso something else, and then that'll fail after another 10 years or 2 years, because I think they're going to have the equivalent of when they got the peso Argentino, which lasted 2 years if they try again. So I think there's just no hope in this, and it's so easy to get over currencies now. I just can't see an Argentinian backed currency succeeding.
Definitely not.
But it does make you think. It makes you think a lot about the currencies. And I was just saying to myself, God, I should be all in. But it's very hard to make that leap.
Yeah, it's the dominoes. The dominoes. The country's getting bigger, right? Argentina is not a small country. People can't say that's a small country. I said that jokingly at the beginning, but there's at least in me. Obviously, it's a country that's been through economic complete chaos, but they're not small. That isn't a country you can just dismiss and be like, oh, it's just Venezuela. It's just some tiny little kind of island type place. This is a large place, Argentina, and it's going through it. And guess what? The next one will be a similar size to Argentina. Then there'll be another one, and then eventually there's going to be a big one. And it's just when people wake up, I guess, because we'll notice, because at the moment, just as people as you research where people are getting paid in fiat and switching it to a different type of fiat, is going to get to a point where the second people get paid in fiat, they convert to Bitcoin. That will be when the hyper Bitcoinization happens. It'll be
Yeah.
It's got to happen in Argentina if their banks are stealing their dollars. They've just got to go, I need this money out and I need it into something else.
yes.
So can I put it into Coinbase or be equivalent in Argentina, or is that blocked? Because I'm a bit unclear on what they can do at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's why we need something like a strike, because you don't want US exchange doing stuff where you have to send it in, send it out. You want to just be able to convert it, just nice and easy, and ideally get paid in Bitcoin, right? That's the ideal.
And of course, now we're further on into the life of Bitcoin. We've got the Lightning Network as well, so people can transact a lot quicker and convert a lot quicker. So it should be easier and become second nature for them as well. And I do think that they will be the next ones.
Yeah, and our last tweet on this subject is good old Saifedean. He always had a good take on these things.
He's got a string of tweets here. To start it off, he links through to the Argentina when the IMF bailed them out with 45 billion. So last year, but it had, as part of it, it had a clause that they should discourage the use of cryptocurrencies with a view to preventing money laundering. So this was last year, they kind of were stopping people fleeing. So it's interesting whether this has had anything, like effects like you can't buy Bitcoin or you can't take it off the exchange. That's what talking about this has made me really wonder. But there's a string of tweets here. And
so you're saying that we're going to give you the money, but the caveat is you need to tell the people can't flee out of this slavery by converting their pesos into Bitcoin.
Yeah, it starts off so Saifedean, his lovely acidic take. The Argentinian government has been one of the world's best in destroying its currency over the past decades. Why is the IMF giving them 45 billion and trying to stop the citizens from having an alternative to their government's perpetually inflating shitcoin?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is Saifedean is Lebanese. He's had this. His family's had this very recently. So he knows what he's talking about.
Well, by the way, that tweet is from May 2022.
Oh, God. Yeah, and he's tagged onto the back of it, and it gets through to recently when he started talking about it. So as this year, clearly the 45 billion loan from the IMF was not enough. The IMF needs to give the kleptocrats in charge of Argentina 450 billion so they can finally achieve financial stability. This is in Feb the 15th. So this is obviously when the trouble started flaring up. And then he comes back in April, update 1 year on from the IMF loan. The Argentine shitcoin has dropped 50% against the US dollar. And the central bank has run out of dollars. Surely another 450 billion from the IMF will fix this. And then also a year ago, the IMF told El Salvador to stop using Bitcoin and focus on fiat debt slavery. Yet it is Argentina that is defaulting today, whilst El Salvador paid off its bonds.
Yeah. So, because there you go. Because literally, if El Salvador hadn't have chosen Bitcoin, the chances are we would be discussing them on this pod as another country going through hyperinflation. But instead, they just refused. They've refused to use the IMF. They've refused to use their debt. They've tried to get off the dollar. They're trying to get onto
paid
Bitcoin.
Off the IMF.
I was just about to say that they've paid off the IMF accordingly.
Yeah, they paid off its bonds. Yeah, they focused because the thing is Bukalele's come in and gone, I'm not going to do what everyone else did and just money print. I'm going to focus on the issues and, controversially, arrested a lot of people, probably arrested some innocent people in there, all that kind of stuff. But he's actually doing real life shit. He isn't just printing money and promising that everything will be fine in 5 years. He's doing real life kind of proof of work stuff. And you can agree or disagree with his methods, but that seems to be what he's doing. And when you look at a macro level for his country, you go, well, they are improving. Inflation is not crazy. Crime is down. Tourism is up. You look at Argentina, which is a bigger, much more should be stable country than El Salvador, much bigger economy. They're in the toilet. Everything's trending the wrong way, yet they have done what the IMF said to do. El Salvador did two fingers up to the IMF and went, fuck you. And they tried to punish them, gave them fines, all kind of stuff. But El Salvador just went, look, we're gonna fulfill obligations, we're gonna pay off these debts. They have done so. Argentina just continued to take more and more debt from the IMF. And what's that done? It's screwed their country, and the people of Argentina now have had their net worth taken from them, and it's tragic. It's millions and millions of people have lost everything over the last couple of days, probably in Argentina.
But this isn't the most painful bit. It's only getting worse.
Yeah, well,
as you said, it's not 50%. Yeah, but I think but they've lost everything, but now they're going to starve.
Yeah, well, yeah. Once the economy collapses, that's the
There's going to be looting. There's going to be murders.
Yeah,
it's going to be fucking horrendous.
Yeah,
courtesy of the IMF and courtesy of a meddling government. This kind of economy doesn't happen without government interference over decades. So putting in regulations, putting in processes, putting in trade agreements. You look back at the history in Argentina, and this is what's caused the inflation. The way which they've handled trade. But when you're talking about that, it did make me think about Sri Lanka. So we haven't heard anything about Sri Lanka since it collapsed. No. And this was on the back of, I think they took IMF loans. They took advice off the WEF to make themselves into a fully sustainable nation with no fertilizers, making themselves greener than green. And then it collapsed because they couldn't fucking grow anything, and they wrecked their economy. Right. And then the WEF deleted all the pages off their website, forgetting that people can use various tools and also are taking screenshots.
Yeah, it's a very weird story. I always feel very conflicted when we're talking about countries collapsing, right? Because we predicted it. But when you really distill it down, it means millions of people are going to die, and it's so horrendous. And even the people that don't die, they've lost everything. Just imagine
it's going to be like El Salvador before they started actually fixing it with the kind of murder rate and crime problem. People are going to go for the easy option.
Even though they won the World Cup, they were poor, last year. So, you may have seen scenes of jubilation and happy in the streets, but these people had nothing.
I know. I find it hard to have almost banter over these stories because it's just horrible, right?
Yeah.
And when this happens to the UK, it's going to be tough. We're not going to be going, "Oh, I told you so," because it's going to be fucking horrible here. People are going to die, and the people that don't die are going to have lost everything. And we're going to be sat there with our Bitcoin, and it's going to be probably worth more than we can even comprehend right now. But it's going to be horrendous. It's going to be friends, family, all over the place, just suffering. And then even though you can help a couple, it's going to be you can't help everyone.
Yeah.
And in reality, I honestly do think when it happens to the UK, it's going to be a case of, I do think fleeing is going to be probably the safest thing. I think there is going to be some type of Bitcoin country pop up, and that's where a lot of us are going to move to, just to ride this out. Because whilst the rest of the economy figures it out, the Bitcoiners can't fix the world all in a couple of months. Yeah, once everything collapses and everything's worth nothing, we can't just give handouts to everyone. It's going to have to be a bit of a slow rebuild and get people back onto Bitcoin. And I look at it and go, it is going to be such a shit show that I don't think I want to be here when that happens. So
I think you raise a really good point there, actually, because we talked about it on last week's pod, where the CEO of Coinbase mentioned that he might be considering the UK. He was never considering the UK, but the very next day, Coinbase were granted a license in Bermuda.
Really? Okay, that's more like
Yeah.
some dodgy
Exactly.
place that doesn't really
Yeah.
exist. Like,
Yeah.
our head office is in Bermuda. Like, let's have a look in your office. There's like a cleaner and a fish tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, what's this? This isn't your head office.
So naturally, Bermuda will take any money that Coinbase want to throw at them within order to get a new license. And I'm sure they won't be having to adhere to any rules or regulations in there. But that also made me scared because it feels very much like FTX as well. And I'm sure the T's and C's will change. And not that I personally keep any Bitcoin or any money on the exchange, but it makes me scared for those that do. Because then they I appreciate they're a publicly listed company, but if again in the T's and C's it says, well, we can take your money, they could take your money.
Yeah. Which in reality, that's what the T&C says now, really. But
Yeah. Same as the T's and C's for your bank. But
yeah,
you're
I
right.
suppose the option of total fraud goes up,
Yeah.
but the total of legal fraud, which is just the company can go bust or the US government can take it, that's still there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brian Armstrong could just go, I'm just going to take all the Bitcoin and just spend it on vegan food. And he could do that if he's in Bermuda, I guess, because he could just pay the Bermudan government some money to go, look, don't arrest me. But then they'll get paid more by the US government to arrest him. So he still gets arrested.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we move on to Bulgaria?
Yeah.
Story of the week.
Yeah. So last story. So just pull it up again.
But yeah, I can open it up if you want because it's it's a weird one, right? So we're talking about Bulgaria and how they could potentially become one of the most powerful countries in the world, and it all comes down to the fact that they've seized 213,000 Bitcoin back in 2017. And interestingly, they did not sell this Bitcoin, and it was worth about $500,000 at the time when they seized it. It's now worth about $6 billion, which is quite a nice price appreciation. And I mean, this article just kind of ponders: do Bulgaria know what they've done here? And the likelihood is yes, because if they'd have seized $500,000 worth of property, cars, whatever, like land, houses, they're just flipped that. They don't want to hold on to all this stuff. They just want to flip it for cash and then put it back in. That's why they have all these auctions and stuff. But interestingly, they didn't sell off the Bitcoin, and that was one hell of a decision. So if they were to continue to hold this, well, they have an absolute shit ton of this Bitcoin, like 200,000 Bitcoin. That they would be, it's going to be Sailor Island and Bulgaria Island here.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If they do sell, it'll impact the price of Bitcoin. So it'd be very hard for them to sell it off right this moment because it's such a substantial amount.
They couldn't sell all of it, yeah. But you'd sell bits, right? You could sell 100 million a day for a year.
Yeah, but like you said, But I thought about this. So in the article, it says how much debt are Bulgarian? 20 billion. So 6 billion is still, it's a third of their debt.
It's
But
massive.
you kind of go,
but
this is one seizure with Bitcoin.
But it's whether they've got any others. But it's also, so you paid off for 6 billion, you're down to 14 billion of debt. But it just mounts up every year because it's not real.
Yeah. There's no incentive to pay down debt. Yeah.
So why would you pay it when you could go, it may not work if I wait 5 years and it turns out to be worth 600 billion? We could be the richest nation in the world, and we could have the Bulgarian standard.
Yeah, well, who knows? Just imagine if they actually realize the Bitcoin standard is coming, and that's they're holding on to it because it's like the introduction of gold, and they're going, we've got a load of this gold, and it looks like it's going to become the new global currency. So we don't want to sell this. We want to hold on to it.
So they use the Bulgarian lev, so it would be the lev standard or the petro lev.
Yeah, well, it just won't be though, because obviously their currency will just hyperinflate. They can't save their currency, but what they can do is hedge. They have a hedge. They have a shit ton of Bitcoin, so they'll be on a Bitcoin standard, but they'll be very, very well set up for the Bitcoin standard, because So when the people of Bulgaria lose all their money in lev, what Bulgaria will be able to do, if they so choose, is backfill their losses in Bitcoin instead, because they have enough Bitcoin there to probably backstop just about all the deposits in Bulgaria. When the time comes, 6 billion isn't going to be enough right now, but when the time comes and hyperinflation's happened and everything's gone to shit, price of Bitcoin will be a number of multitudes higher. They'll just be able to go, yeah, we lost all your lev. It's all fucked. However, we have a shit ton of Bitcoin. I don't think they'll do it, unfortunately, which is why I wouldn't rely on a government to bail you out, because I don't think they will. But I'd stack personally, if I was in Bulgaria, I'd be like, okay, this is positive. My government seemed to be doing something good. I still wouldn't trust them to share it with you. I would still be stacking my own Bitcoin. But who knows? There's a chance that, at the very least, the Bulgarian government will want to retain control, power over the people. So they'll use that Bitcoin to at least keep things stable. So it's a good sign for Bulgaria.
If this was in a Western country, because you have governments moving around quite often, it would be spent by the present government when they realised. Whereas because you've got an Eastern Bloc, they'll have, I don't know what they'll call it, but typically they'll have a party in power. And it won't be quite a dictator, but they can't get rid of them. So I think that's a possible reason why it's being kept. But if you had 5 years of Conservatives and Labour, Conservatives would have sold it, and if they'd not realised, Labour would have sold it when they come into power. That's exactly what would happen. So I just think it's probably a mix of different things where they kind of gone, maybe, just maybe, it means nothing at the moment, but it could mean everything. And it could, I'd just say, solidify their power in 10 years' time.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot to be said about where the government or the person in charge remains in charge for a long period of time, as opposed to, the chopping and changing. We've seen the likes of, Russia, China, and so forth, where their government has stability, but then it also brings about this dictatorship, doesn't it? And that leader is never really questioned. Whereas they can think as a whole and as a collective for the good of, the good of the people on a much broader sense. Whereas in the UK, you'll have this in-house fighting on the small minutiae detail and not think about the grand scheme of things. Yeah, like you say, I think if it was the UK, I think it would have been spent, or, well, I think we'll spend it just so that the other party don't get it, as opposed to let's keep it and let the country prosper as a whole.
I think it'll be the next bull market. It'll be really interesting to watch us to see if anything does happen. Because that is the time when you kind of go, maybe they didn't realise for 10 years, but they do realise now because it's out in the news. So the next bull market, when it goes flying up, I do wonder.
Yeah, well, as we saw, right, there's Western countries that they probably know what they've got with Bitcoin, but they use it as a weapon to suppress the price of Bitcoin. We've seen them suppress the price of gold and silver for the last 50 years. So they can suppress the price of Bitcoin to a certain extent based on what they seize. And we've seen America do that with their Silk Road coins. And Bulgaria have not. But why are Bulgaria different? It's like, well, they're not tied to the existing US dollar. They are a little bit out of the way. They're probably out of the influence of America as well, but only for now. So literally seeing that story I straight away just thought, oh, when's the weapons of mass destruction going to get found in Bulgaria? You know,
Mm.
when's some disaster going to happen in Bulgaria that we suddenly need a US intervention? They need to come in and save the day, and
Yeah.
they happen to walk off with 200,000 Bitcoin, and they just go, "Thank you. We'll continue to sell this nice and consistently to suppress the price of Bitcoin, and also just make sure that another country doesn't have it. You know, they don't want big countries to have it because suddenly Bulgaria could become a threat to the US, to the United States. That's insane to even slightly
Be
consider.
fucking awesome.
Who are United States or Bulgaria?
No, they become a threat. It'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? And then
yeah,
the only
it's
thing they have to
funny
do
you
is
say this.
have Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's funny you say this as well because they would be doing it, as you say, for exactly that reason, to try and get hold of the Bitcoin, but yet publicly they continue to belittle and degrade Bitcoin as some magic internet money, but yet they're willing to go to war for it, to get hold of it, to ensure that they've got it.
Yeah.
Mm.
You say, do you want to make a prediction in 6 months? Send me unless Bulgaria hand this over and agree to sell it. I would say within 6 months, the US have done some type of military action against them.
I don't think they can because I think Russia's filling up everything. I think I'm going to go for 18 months.
Yeah, so you're like, yeah, it's not a no, it's just a bit longer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm
We'll
saying that
get round
because
to you.
the halving is in a year and give it 6 months to pump a little bit and everyone to jizz themselves about Bulgaria. And then I think they'll need some freedom.
Some freedom
Yeah.
bombs.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
democracy.
Some Biden ice cream. What you're saying, Snell, you go in. I've said 6. I do think I'm a little bit bullish on 6, probably 18, probably a bit better. But what do you think?
Well, this is again where we talk about it quite often in Ray Dalio's book, The Changing World Order, because ultimately, as the number one superpower in terms of US, it has to pick its battles. It's got a battle at the moment in-house in terms of like a civil war brewing. We've got the change of a presidency. You've obviously also got the number 2 with China linking up with potentially the number 3, Russia. You've then got you've got that hot war potentially happening. You've got them in terms of China saying we may take on Taiwan because you've got this chip war. And then you've got Bulgaria piping up as well, saying, potentially we're going to do this. And, we want, or they might want to take on their Bitcoin. Whilst all of this is going on, they then start to deplete their forces, don't they? And they're trying to put out all of these fires here and there. Lo and behold, they've spent all of their powder and they're depleted. And then that's how they get attacked. And let's not forget, we've got the BRICS nation who are, from what I understand, 31% of GDP, and by 2030 due to be 50% of GDP.
Man, I'm so bullish on Bulgaria now. Because yeah, you listed it perfectly.
Maybe that's a place for us to all go and live.
Because well, who knows? Because they look like they are a threat, right? But yeah, you said it perfectly. Where they've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah,
they're distracted, and Bulgaria's is sat there on an absolute war chest of Bitcoin, and who knows? It might be too late for them to go get it. Because the price goes up, it gets harder to get it because Bulgaria's defenses get better.
Yeah. And just like we started it before when we were talking about Argentina, at one point, no one would have thought that Argentina would have been in the position that they're in right now.
No,
Things
I
can
think
change over time, and I think in this day and age, things can change in terms of world ranking a lot quicker than over the 100 years of what Argentina has obviously gone from top 10 to not even mentioned
Yeah.
at all.
It'll be nuts, right? Say in 100 years, where someone's looking through, writing the next Radialio post, right, of just the rise and fall of nations.
Mm,
Someone goes, "Why did Bulgaria become number one?" And
yeah,
they track it all the way back to some dodgy drug dealers that were dealing in Bitcoin, and they basically acquired 200,000 Bitcoin back in freaking 2013 for basically pennies, but they held on to it.
yeah,
Some government official, it's going to be like the whole like conspiracy or incompetence thing again, where either they just didn't know what to do with it, or they did know and they were holding
yeah,
it for real.
yeah,
But either way, it doesn't matter. They did, and they held it, and it ended up being like, well, what is it? It's like 0.1% of the whole supply of Bitcoin, and they ended up having it, and then we hit a Bitcoin standard. They
1%, isn't it?
Is it 1%? Oh my God, it is 1%.
It's bloody massive.
That's
yeah.
scary. That's scary.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, one
And I think
percent of all
Sailor's
Bitcoin.
got 1% as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
With MicroStrategy.
they've 'Cause I think Sailor's got, was it 5 billion, and they've got 6 billion, so they've got a
Yeah,
little bit more.
213,000 Bitcoin is
Yeah,
exactly that. Yeah.
and I can just imagine reading it, going, "Oh, that's how." There's no great strategy. It was just they randomly kind of almost came across
Yeah, they
a new
forgot. And then
currency of the globe, and then they just held it all for like 50 years, and then boom, came out of it. And America was too occupied with China, Russia, fighting Europe, fighting all these other fiat currencies. And little Bulgaria sat there in the sidelines being like, lol, they built up their infrastructure, built up their armies, they brought a load of Bitcoiners in, and then boom, they took over the world. That's how they became number one.
Yeah. Because
Imagine
if
that
they
other
story.
big conspiracy theory is that Satoshi is Bulgarian.
I heard he was Klaus Schwab.
Yeah, because if they play their cards right and become a friendly Bitcoin country, then they get the defenses of other Bitcoiners to defend them. And with the hyper Bitcoinization of Bitcoin, they have an even more powerful defense
Yeah.
against those that are trying to take it.
We're getting a few places where we can live, boys.
It's starting to firm up, isn't it, already?
Mm.
We've got Sailor, Bulgaria,
It is scary times because
Croatia.
I am after
You know
that
what?
link which Sir Neverlook points out about the UK. I'm going shit. It's closer than I thought.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm actually thinking as well, right? It's so strange that it's just come to me now, is that the pod is like, uh, like a new episode every week of what's going on. And so if anybody was to rewatch the pods back every, from one to where we are right now, it's also the changing pieces of what's going on. And, the agenda, as we say, always writes itself, but the history itself is writing itself along the way. So, we are documenting what's going on. And this is better than any episode of EastEnders, any episode of WWE SmackDown, any episode of whatever your favorite show is, because this is the world's most bullish podcast, brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, brought to you by Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, brought to you by Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and brought to you by Mrs. No Show, who is still on Pod 95. No show. That's how you close the show.